Since the rise of Google, the internet has been ad-driven. Most big websites and platforms make their money through ads, and it even spawned a new generation of jobs like mine, like content creators and influencers or whatever else you want to call them. But this ad-based model is starting to crumble as companies struggle to be profitable. Investor money dries up and companies try to find ways to make money and make the internet worse in the process. So let's look at why ads don't work anymore, at a bunch of examples, and at a few things that could happen once the ad-based internet inevitably dies off. And speaking of ads, I know it's ironic, but here is one for our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Tuxcare, and they have a wide range of services to help you ensure that your Linux server or workstation fleet is easy to manage, always up to date and secure. And today they are letting you download a free white paper to give you a few tools to deal with a ransomware attack. You'll learn how to assess the attack when you notice it, and the first steps you should take, who you should communicate with, how to plan your response and execute it, but also a few things you can do to ensure your employees are trained and able to deal with ransomware attacks, plus various backup strategies you can put in place, as well as how to stay on top of patches to avoid vulnerabilities. So if you want to learn how to best approach this kind of problematic situation, click the link in the description below and download the free white paper. So, the ad-based internet model, that's probably the only way you ever experienced the internet. Chances are some of you weren't born when Google appeared in 1998, and while ads on the internet existed before Google, they're really the ones we have to thank for the internet as it is today. Basically, they've shown that with enough scale, it is possible to offer your content for free as long as ads are displayed to generate revenue for you. And yes, content was basically always free on the internet, but after Google arrived and showed that ads could work, then basically all internet content became free with ads. And it was cool for a time. It meant that with enough followers, viewers, readers, watchers, or whatever else, you could make a living just working and talking about the stuff that you're passionate about. But as always, where money is involved, people started getting greedy. And so now you've got websites completely filled with ads that are completely unusable. You got 3 or 4 ads before a single video plays. It's become pretty much a mess, and it made the internet really worse. As more and more ads were shoved in people's faces, they either ditched the offending websites or they started using adblock, and this limits the ad revenue. And so websites decided to add more ads or to write their content in a way that would let them display more ads. Stuff like a web page auto-refreshing all the time, or an article being split into 15 pages where it only needed to be 1, or outrageously clickbaity titles that just mean nothing and have no relation to the content, but you don't care. The user clicked on it, they viewed the ads, and you made your money. Basically, truly horrible stuff was born from this, and it made the internet worse for everyone. Now, to compound that, ads started paying less and less for the platforms that distribute them, and for the websites that display them. Most of the display formats, like these little ad banners, most of them started being completely ignored. No one clicks them, and they don't generate any revenue. Plus, with more stringent privacy laws, it's become less and less possible to collect and aggregate data. So ads target users less effectively, and so have worse click and conversion rates, and so they're sold for less money. And this means that as time goes on, you get less and less money from the same number of views on your website, your podcast, or your video. And this means that the ad model is less and less valuable, unless you're absolutely huge. And even then, it's not always working. Let's take Twitter, for example. It's a huge platform, one of the biggest social networks out there, and their revenue has always been 99% ads. It has existed for more than 10 years, and it has never made any money. It actually loses millions every year, with a user base of more than 400 million users. So even at that scale, ads are not a viable way to sustain a full company. And keep in mind that Twitter is mostly text. It's not heavy stuff. There are some photos and videos, but it's mostly text. It's not super space intensive. And of course, the company might have been mismanaged. It might even be more mismanaged right now. But the fact is, the ad-based model doesn't work for even a company as big as Twitter. And all the changes Elon Musk is making to Twitter, like firing most of the workforce, charging for the API, limiting the number of tweets you can see per day, refusing to pay for their offices or their servers, it's all to try and turn a profit. Twitter Blue is here to nickel and dime users in the hopes of actually making money for Twitter. Well, one could argue that only an absolute idiot would think that these changes would actually help Twitter turn a profit. But you could also think that maybe it's done on purpose to kill Twitter so Elon Musk doesn't have to pay the investors back. So the experience of Twitter is now 10 times worse than it was, with limits, less moderation, and more hate, more disinformation, since you can't tell who is the real account or a fake account. It's all terrible. Now let's look at Reddit. Reddit has about 430 million monthly active users. It's about as popular as Twitter. And Reddit isn't profitable either. They're kept afloat by raising money from investors. Their main business model, if we can call it that, is ads on the site, and a premium subscription to remove said ads, plus a bunch of useless BS to not look too much like you're actually paying for a good experience on the site. And all the moves that Reddit has made regarding charging for access to their API are just there to inflate the profits or actually start making profits, because you can't depend on investor money anymore. And if you can't stay alive with investor money, then you have to actually find a business model that works. And so Reddit charges for their API now, in the hopes that the content on the platform is valuable enough that people creating AI models would pay for it. And in the process, they're making the whole site crappier for everyone. So not only did Reddit make their own website worse for everyone by killing off third-party clients and not having great moderation tools that were provided and killing off moderation bots, but they also made the whole internet worse, because now when you do a search online on Google or whatever else, chances are you're still getting very high up results for Reddit, but when you click on them, the subreddit is private and you can't read anything. So your searches are now actively terrible thanks to what Reddit did. And we can also look at YouTube. YouTube is huge. It's the biggest video platform, at least for the Western world. Maybe some Chinese websites are bigger. And it's hard to know if YouTube is profitable or not. The consensus seems to be that yes, it is, but the actions of YouTube seem to indicate that maybe it's not that profitable. For example, YouTube seems to be planning moves against adblock. Since YouTube's revenue is mostly ads and a bit of premium and channel memberships, they want to make sure people are watching the ads. And so they're testing a pop-up that will tell you you have 3 videos left to watch until you need to either disable your ad blocker or subscribe to premium. If you don't, you cannot watch videos anymore. And that's not something you do when you're rolling around in cash. If profits were high enough, adblock would be a small issue that they would never need to tackle. Now, YouTube is also taking steps against third-party frontends like Invidious, which received a cease and desist, which probably can't lead to anything as the website doesn't use the YouTube API, but who knows. Again, not something you do when you're ultra profitable. So YouTube is probably not really in trouble, but their profits are probably not high enough for Alphabet and investors, because they wouldn't do this kind of petty stuff if they were actually having a huge profit growth. And this will make YouTube worse for everyone, because once YouTube doesn't need to care about adblock, there's nothing preventing them from putting 10 ads before a video or making all the ads unskippable. Where else are you going to go for your video fix? Well, let's look at that, because I don't think alternative platforms will save the internet. I use a lot of alternative platforms. I never use Twitter anymore. I use Mastodon. My podcasts are distributed on my own Castopod website. My videos are all on PeerTube. I don't use Instagram. I use PixelFed. I love these platforms. The ethics, the philosophy, the ease of use, the concept, it's great. But they will probably never replace giant proprietary platforms for one simple reason. They don't have a business model for people who create the content. As a user, you probably don't care about that, and the person running the instance of said platform maybe is ready to fund it out of pocket or manage to have enough donations to pay for the hosting. But the people creating the content on these platforms, the videos, the podcasts, the articles, they're not making money from them. At best, some people will donate, and I can confirm I have some Patreon signups from PeerTube and some PayPal donations from PeerTube as well. But as much as I appreciate all the support, this is not nearly enough to allow me to just make a living off of donations. If I had to only rely on donations, I simply would have to stop making videos. I would have to go and get a regular job to pay my bills. And while I would probably still try and make a few videos, it would maybe be 2 or 3 per month at most, compared to 3 per week now. Ads and sponsors are what allow me to pay the bills as a content creator, and for most other content creators, it's the same thing. If alternative platforms don't have also an alternative business model for creators, chances are they're never gonna use them. And so while I love PeerTube and I plan to keep supporting it financially and with my content for the foreseeable future, well, it's still hurting me financially to be in there. If we imagine that YouTube died tomorrow and no ad-based competitor replaced it, most creators that make a living on YouTube would stop creating stuff, probably most of the smaller creators. The biggest ones would have to scale back. LTT would not be able to hire 100 people to make 3 videos per day without ads and sponsors. Some creators would move to alternative platforms, maybe PeerTube, maybe Odyssey, and maybe they would manage to get enough donations to keep doing that as a living. And speaking of Odyssey, no, they don't have a business model either. Being paid in monopoly money through their crypto token that loses value every single day is not a suitable replacement for having a stable revenue source. Anyway, most people would just stop creating content as a job. Some might continue as a hobby, but the net result would be you would have way less choice in terms of what you listen to, watch, or read. And so, as ad-based models start to slowly die off, I think we can expect one out of these 3 solutions. First, the big platforms survive, as is with the ads. You can still have ads on your own website, but the platforms will start keeping more and more of the ad revenue, and it will mean less people can actually create content for a living. More ads will also be shown, and the decline of these websites will be long and painful until someone else comes in with a better business model for themselves and for the creators. And this is where we're heading for now. This is exactly what platforms are currently doing. They're shoving more and more ads to try and compensate the price of ads falling. People get more sick of them, they block them more, or they stop watching, and so you need to add more ads and more ads and more ads. It's where we're heading right now. The second option would be that the big platforms and websites evolve to another model, for example, paywalling everything behind the paid subscription, like YouTube Premium. This is the paid internet that most newspapers are trying to bring to life, and that doesn't seem to work all that well. I think some platform might adopt that in the future, but only either the biggest with the most content, like for example YouTube, or the nichest ones, the ones that really appeal to a certain fragmentary audience that doesn't have a lot of choice. I could see myself paying $2 to $5 a month for a website I read all the time, but I couldn't see myself paying even $1 a month for something like TikTok, which has basically zero quality. It's a fun distraction, but you would not pay for it if you didn't have ads. So this solution would probably kill off a huge portion of the internet, but honestly it's probably the portion we could do without the most. And the third option, the big platforms and the internet as a whole can't find a new model to replace ad-based ones, and big platforms and big websites just simply die off. And content creation would then become a hobby mostly. Some creators could still make a living through donations, but most people wouldn't. And this would probably be the best outcome for the internet as a whole. And I'm saying that as a content creator that would definitely lose my content creating job. Because it would mean that all the sorry clickbait, disinformation, badly written articles, and crappy stuff would just die off because there's no incentive to make it if you can't make a quick buck off of it. I would probably not get enough donations to be able to keep doing this as a job. Honestly, if ad-based models were to die off tomorrow, I would not get enough money to keep working. But I would still make a few videos here and there, and I still think it would be great so that people realize that yes, all the content that you watch or read online is a lot of work, and so paying for it is absolutely normal. Ad-based models gave people the impression that everything was free, but it was never free. The content was paid for by advertisers in exchange for users' eyeballs and time and personal information. And if people are not willing to pay with that form of currency anymore, then they're gonna have to pay with real currency if they still want to have access to the same information. So I think it's clear that these ad-based models are just crumbling slowly. They just cannot keep up with the growth that investors want to see, and they basically can't sustain every website unless the scale is absolutely enormous, from the size of Google or YouTube or stuff like that. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, but what's clear is that until we found another solution, the internet is gonna keep getting worse and worse over time as more ads get shoved to compensate the fact that ads don't work anymore. And in the meantime, I still have to pay the bill. So here is a sponsor segment for a company that makes computers that run Linux out of the box. They're called Tuxedo and they're based in Germany, but they ship to most countries in the world. And they do exactly what I said. They have laptops and desktops of all sizes, all shapes, all configurations, all price points, and they all run Linux out of the box. You can slap your own distro on them, or you can just select from one of the pre-installed options that they have, and all the hardware is perfectly compatible with Linux. You can customize them a lot with all the specs, you can have your own logo, your own keyboard layout if you want, and all their laptops are openable, repairable, and upgradable. So if you need a new computer, stop looking at PCs that only support Windows. Click the link in the description below and buy something from Tuxedo. They are really, really good. So thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, or to write a comment. And if you didn't like the video, well, you can always dislike it and tell me why, but I really don't see why. And if you really enjoy the channel and you want it to survive after the ad-based internet dies off and I can't make any money, there are plenty of links to donate something in the description below. LibraPay, PayPal, Patreon, YouTube thanks, YouTube memberships. You know how all of this works. So thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!